Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the premiere installment of At Home with Andrew, our online cooking show with Chef Andrew Dunbar. Welcome, Andrew. How are you?
Excellent, Tim. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. It's been a media day for me. All I've been doing is shows and appearances. So
That's perfect.
I'll take it. So a little bit of the background on why we're doing the show this way, and just feel free to jump in, Andrew, whenever you want. Andrew's been doing some cooking classes at the library, and we ran into the fact that they're limited because the library doesn't have a kitchen. So instead of trying to do a cooking show at a commercial kitchen somewhere, Andrew had the idea, and I thought it was a great one, and that led us here. That he do a cooking show at home where he prepares food and demonstrates it live on camera online.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, family dinner is a huge thing, especially here in my house where, everybody is pseudo joining me now. It's dinner is where you sit down with your family, you get to relax, you get to talk about each other's day. And in this hectic world where people are working 8, 9, 10, 12 hours, kids are at school, summer camp, all that, it's kind of when you come back together and everybody kind of puts their roots back in. And you almost restart your day in some households at dinner because that's when the family comes all together. So being able to do a family style meal with everybody at their home just made perfect sense.
Yeah. So we just decided to give it a go as a summer program. This is our first one. We'll have another one in July. Sounds like a great one is in the works for August already. So what will you be preparing for us this evening?
All right. So tonight we are going to be doing a mushroom and leek stuffed tomato with a flank steak and chimichurri. We're going to go ahead and do an over easy egg on top of that because I think that it pairs very well, brings that little extra fattiness that this high acid dish kind of needs. But also when you see this at the end, you guys, you're just going to fall in love with it, especially when you watch this video. Again, if you are not cooking with me tonight and you're just watching, or if you're watching this later on the Manitowoc Public Library's Facebook or on the YouTube channel, and you see that how easy this is, you're just going to fall in love with it. So yeah, we're going to make a very light version of a mushroom duxelle, which is diced up mushrooms cooked down kind of low and slow with some shallots. We got a little garlic and a little parsley in there. And then we're going to stuff that inside of a nice tomato, roast those off, cook our flank steak, and then we're going to go ahead and put some chimichurri, which is kind of the pesto equivalent to parsley. If basil is the pesto, parsley is the chimichurri. It's a South American dish that is almost a table condiment there. It's just something that you have, and anytime you kind of grill or roast meat, you put this on there. So it just adds this brightness and herbiness that you just makes the dish amazing.
Cool. And you touched on something. If you are watching this later, this is archived forever. So even if you're watching live, don't forget to tell everyone you know to tune in. Just moving forward, because this is archived forever, and you can go and watch it as many times as you want. If you miss something, if it's going too fast, or if you just miss something, tune in, like Andrew said, to our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, and it's there forever. Also, I did want to mention, following along, if you have any questions or comments as we're going, Andrew brought up, I hate to paraphrase you with you here, but in an interview that you did, you had mentioned, like, if somebody has, any hints, shortcuts, tips, tricks, to bring up, throw those into the mix while Andrew is cooking, and I will relay that to him. Just type it into the comment section on either platform, YouTube or Facebook, and I'll get it to Andrew. And also, we're going to be joined in a little bit by a level 1 sommelier, I believe, at some point. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, a good friend of mine, Eric Miller, is going to be popping by. He is a level 1 sommelier, which is, the expert in wine. And he's going to be stopping by and bringing a bottle. We actually sampled this dish on Tuesday, kind of prepared it, made sure it was could cook it within the time restraints that we had, along with the talking and all that. And we opened a couple bottles of wine and figured out the right one. So he's going to be bringing that by, recommending one for you, and kind of how he got to that recommendation and why he recommends that wine. Nicely, or his goal with that as well was he sourced it locally, which he'll talk about
cool.
where we get to that part.
So when people watching see someone wandering through in the background, it's not a home invasion. It's simply air. All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to bring up what is cleverly been labeled the food cam, and I'm going to take myself out of the picture. I'll be in here voice-wise, but yeah, let's get going, and I'm going to switch the focus to the food cam, and I'll probably be switching a bit back and forth, but take it away, Andrew.
Sounds great. So the first two things we are going to do when you get ready to prepare this dish is you want to take your steak out of the fridge. So here I just have a flank steak. I got this at Festival Foods. And you want to pull that out. You would want steak to really close to room temperature whenever you're starting to cook it. Because if it's too cold, it heats unevenly through the center because the outside's going to get hot really fast and the middle of it's still going to be refrigerator cold. And then to get that middle to the 135 to 145, depending on how you like your steaks, you got to take those outsides to almost black. You got to really, really cook it hard. And we want to prevent that. Or option two is you have to cook it at a lower temperature for longer, which tightens and toughens up that meat. So having that thing sit at room temperature for, about an hour is great for it. If you go a little longer, a little shorter, that's fine. But right at about an hour, and hopefully we'll be hitting steak into the pan in about 45 minutes to an hour. So we're right on time with that. Step two is what is setting your oven. So if you're going to be roasting your tomatoes in your oven, go ahead and preheat that to 375 to 385. Everyone's oven's a little different. You should know if yours cooks a little. If every time you box this set it to 375, you got to cook it for a few more minutes. That means your thermometer's in your thermostat in the oven's off. Just bump it up 10 degrees. That's kind of how you can fix that. I am going to be cooking mine, and I'll try to give you a quick shot here in my countertop air fryer. Mostly because I live in an old farmhouse. I do not have central air. So anytime I can not turn my oven on, it's a big win in these summer months. Eric is here. Eric, hello. So we are going to start with the mushrooms. So it is a pseudo duxelle. What I mean by that is a traditional duxelle has some white wine in there, a few other more traditional way. You're more going to mince down your mushrooms than what we're going to do today. But it's going to bring all those flavors right on in. If you go down those stairs, right to the basement, at the bottom of the basement, you'll see the wine. So first things first, we're going to grab some olive oil. Any olive oil you have. I just got a nice jar one day and I kept refilling it. And I have a nice heavy bottom cook pan here. Now, if you don't have a cast iron pan or anything like that, that's fine. You'll just want to cook your mushrooms a little lower and a little slower because that cast iron bottom, that really heavy duty cast iron bottom is going to disperse that heat more evenly. So you can cook it a bit higher without risk of burning. So if you're just using, a standard skillet, that's perfectly fine. I do it too. Just turn it down, one click on your stove and just go for about 5 minutes longer. All right, so first up will be these mushrooms. I got, again, from Festival Foods, some pre-sliced white mushrooms. Why did I get pre-sliced white mushrooms? Well, they were 12 cents cheaper for the same size package. No other reason. If you don't like dicing as much and you want to get them it's a little bit more of a convenience factor, go for that. If you are a mushroom purist and you would like your mushrooms whole before you cut them so you can dust them and clean them and do all that, That's fine. That's the beauty of cooking in your house, right? I'm not about to come into your house and tell you how to cook. I'm going to give you some suggestions, and we're going to work on that together.
Or
So
if you're a Kennedy and don't mind spending that extra 12 cents.
Some people don't, but I save 12 cents enough times, and that equals one more Jameson while I'm at the bar. So I kind of lean that direction.
See, you're playing chess. I'm just playing checkers. So.
So we're just going to go ahead and take and just, like I said, really just start rough chopping this. You know, I'm not expecting everybody out there cooking at home to have this, you know, culinary degree worth of knife skills. So I'm going to try and not use them myself, if that makes sense. I'm not going to try to overwhelm you guys with how I'm doing it. So as you can see, I'm just keeping my hand safely away. And anytime I see kind of a big chunk like this one here, or some of these over here, just go ahead and cut them. If the other one's getting in the way and you dice those a little smaller, great. That's all we're doing here. All right. So I have this heavy bottom pan on like a medium low. For some reason, my countertop or my stovetop goes from low to 4, medium, 6-8 high. So it wants to go by 2s with a random medium in there as well. So I have it on that like 4, which I'm thinking is out of 9. I don't really know. So once we have that on there, we're just going to take it, bring it right over here to this, and toss it right in that pan where I have just a little bit of olive oil heating up. So with the mushrooms, I like to put the mushrooms in when the pan is still somewhat cold. The reason for that is I don't want my mushrooms to get scalded or burnt right away. So by bringing them up at the same time, I'm not going to get a sear on those mushrooms. And when you're doing this, you're trying to cook the mushrooms down by removing all that water in them. So if I'm searing the mushrooms off, I'm creating less area that they can exert their moisture. So into the cold pan, slowly heating them up. While we do that, we're going to work on our garlic. So everyone's seen some form of a TikTok trick, something like that to get garlic out. Whether it is the whole stab it when it's on, it'll pop right off, put it into 2 cups and shake it like crazy. However works for you, just get your garlic out. I like to get it, once I get the thing to where it has most of the skin off, I'll find kind of the end here. Chop that off. Put your knife on top of it, blade away. Just give it a little pop. Once you give it that little pop, most of the skin right here is going to kind of pop off just like that. And peel relatively easy for you. And again, this is a great time. If you got a tip, if you got a trick, if your great grandmother who came from Sicily has this amazing way of getting garlic out in half the time, drop it in the comments. Let us know. Drop it in the comments of the videos once these things are archived. Let us know. You know, a community that kind of cooks together, you know, is just that much tighter once we can start sharing recipes and all that. So once again, with this is a big clove of garlic. I'm going to cut the thing completely in half, long ways. And again, I'm not looking to do a crazy dice job on it right away. Cut it into some cubes, pile it up, give it a rough chop. Again, this is all about the comfort of your knife skills. Sorry if everybody can hear my cat. She is a pain and she wants fed. So we're just going to keep going over this knife, or over this garlic with the knife. Scrape it off into the pile. Get it back together. Chop it like that. Once you have all of that, we're going to scrape that. And it's going to go right in there with those mushrooms. Okay. Next step after that is going to be our shallot. Let me adjust this so I'm not going off screen every time I look down at my board. How's that look? All right. So a shallot is, I don't know, a cross between garlic and an onion, if you will. Think 20% garlic, 80% onion. And I mean that in terms of flavor. It's going to have that kind of astringency that garlic and onion has, but on a much lower level, which is why I really like it for dealing with mushrooms or a softer flavor like that than I would a normal onion. So as your onions and garlic and all that start to go, just give that occasional stir. So, way to tackle a shallot. They're again going to have the same sort of a skin on them, like a garlic or an onion. A lot of times when you get them, they're going to have 2 or 3 of these inside. So just like in the garlic, but this time we're not going to cut the root end. We're going to cut the tip off. Okay. Once you get that tip off, you should be able to get these outer layers kind of peeled off a little easier, unless you have the shallot that's been waiting to ruin my video all morning sitting. There we go. So, once again, we're going to cut this similarly to how you would cut a onion. So I'm going to put this root away from me. I'm going to take the tip of my knife and I'm going to make some vertical cuts, right? The tighter they are, the more comfortable you are with the knife, fine. It just means a finer dice. I'm trying to keep my hands out of the way so everyone can see. I only did about 1, 2, 3, 4 there. So now when I'll turn it this way and I run my knife this way across them, because a shallot is layered like an onion, you now have this dice shallot. I'll take that, pop that right there with these mushrooms. I'm going to go ahead and take the food can and put that into the pot some. So,
Andrew, I had a quick question coming in, and it's right where you know. Can I substitute onion if I don't have shallot?
Yes, please do. What I would recommend is add about 20-30% more of that. Bring this camera back around to me now. Add about 20% more of that garlic. So I did about 1 large clove, maybe do 1 large and a small, and then do about 30% less of an onion than you saw me do in shallot to kind of keep that softer flavor profile. If you throw, that was probably about 2 ounces worth of weight of shallot. If you throw 2 ounces of onion in there, you're just gonna get a lot more onion flavor. So just reduce your quantity a little bit. And it'll absolutely work. So red onion, that was kind of backup plan. If there wasn't any shallots I liked, luckily, again, I did all my shopping at Festival. I 100% wanted to make sure this was something that somebody could have popped today on their way home from work and got, and Festival has shallots. But if, you know, you're just trying to make a quick dinner on a Tuesday, and you don't want to stop at the grocery store, yeah, use what you have, some garlic, some onions. If you don't have red onion, use a yellow onion. If this recipe ends up not quite being, you know, exactly where you want it, you would prefer maybe a little more sweetness, grab yourself a Vidalia onion as opposed to a red onion or something like that. You know, it's, again, that's the beauty of cooking at home, is you can modify this as you want. So as this starts to cook down, you'll start to see it steaming a little bit, as I know it's steaming up my camera here some.
Not bad, though.
Perfect, good. I can move it back a little. Yell at me if it starts to.
Okay.
As it starts to steam a little bit, that means obviously the moisture in those mushrooms is starting to come out. So at that point now, you can salt. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the food can and bring it over to show you my salt. I just have a little wooden crock here that I keep my salt in. I like it because it allows me to pinch my salt and control how much I'm putting in there a little easier. So at this point, I'm going to give it, I don't know, about a 3-finger so pinch of salt in there. and go ahead and stir all of that in. I prefer this over the shaker because there's been just too many times in my life where I've gone to shake the salt and nothing comes out. So I kind of give it one more shake and it all comes out. So by being able to have that crock, it's something that I can very much control how much salt I'm putting onto something. And a little wooden box like that, you can get almost anywhere. In fact, at the farmer's market this past Saturday, I saw there's a vendor who does some amazing, beautiful wood work, and he has little bitty bowls like that. Grab one of those if you don't have a bowl. Or give me 1 second here, and I'll show you something I use. For quite a while, I just went to St. Vinny's and just picked up a little bitty kind of tea bowl for, I think, 50 cents. And I just used that, and I just had salt sitting in that for quite a while until I think I got that wooden one as a birthday present or something like that. So, enough of my rambling. We have our shallots, garlic, mushroom. So now it's time for our leek. So the part of the leek that we really want to use today is from about here to down. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut that root off. And then right where it starts to go about green, go ahead and take that part right there off. Now, the rest of this leek is not bad. As you move farther up to the green, it's going to get a little more fibrous and more mild. We're going to cut that leek in half. And I'm going to go and wash it because leeks grow in the ground. And there's a lot of dirt inside these flaps. So you'll have almost a core inside that you can pop out.
Your cat agrees.
Yeah. She recently discovered what outside was, and now that's all she wants. So again, all of this, I'll be right back. Just run into the sink to wash these out.
Again, if anyone has any comments or questions, please feel free to add in. Great question about the onion substitution there. Anything else? Tips, tricks, just outright questions? Keep them coming.
All right. So now that I have my leek cleaned off, any of these outer layers, you can see, again, just has a little bit of coloring to it. Most of that's just, again, they grow on the ground. They are going to be dirty. So we're going to take those off. And again, I can sit here and dice these, get them nice and thin. And if that's where you're at, go for it. If that's not where you're at, again, maintain safety. And by that, I mean, don't cut your fingers off, please. Because I want you to finish watching this video and a trip to the emergency room. You're just going to burn your mushrooms. So,
that is so true.
But if you're not, go and just keep your fingers back and cut it into some bigger chunks if you need to.
So for this recipe, it doesn't matter thick or thin?
Nope, not at all. So the nice thing about that duxelle is we're cooking it down, right? The idea of this duxelle is you are squeezing all the moisture out of that stuff that's going to come out of the mushrooms, out of the leeks, out of the garlic, all that as it cooks. But then you're just going to keep cooking it, and the water is then going to evaporate, but all that flavoring and all that is going to stay in there. So it's just going to get soaked right back up. So you're going to see, and I'll get the camera back on the mushrooms here in a bit, and we'll start to see when we hit that point. There is kind of a point within your mushrooms that's going to look very wrong. And I promise you it is very, very right. So we now have our leeks in here. And again, we're just kind of tossing this around.
And Nessa Green had a comment. Good info on the leek.
What was that?
Nessa says good info on the leek. So thank you for passing along good, accurate leek information.
That is good. And thank you. Remember, leeks are bad in a boat, great in the kitchen.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Hey! So, we're just going to keep cooking this here down. And as that cooks down, sorry, I'm trying to shut that cat up. We are going to just occasionally give it a stir. Again, we have this on medium heat at its highest. And that is if you were in a nice thick bottom. And I don't necessarily only mean cast iron when I say a good thick bottom pot like that. There are some saucepans and all that just have a heavier duty bottom. And a lot of times that does equate to the quality of the product. So, if you mostly have, if all your pans came in $50 set, nothing wrong with that. You can cook some great meals with it. Just know that probably means the metal's thinner. So you just need, again, cook it a little lower and a little longer. Nothing wrong with it. We can get the exact same equation. 1 + 2 = 3, but guess what? 2 + 1 = 3. So we just got to do it a different way. All right, so while we are cooking this down, we are going to get our tomatoes ready. So what we're going to do with these tomatoes, as you see, I got 2 nice big round tomatoes. So I'm going to take those, give them a good little wash and a scrub. Especially if you bought them from the stores, who knows who, what, or when, they were last washed. So I like to do that. So when we're coring out these tomatoes, there's 2 things I want to point out that kind of make it easy. One, a nice shorter paring knife. I just have my, what set is this? J.A. Hinkle's International knife set here. Using my standard kitchen set, not using my knife collection that I use at work. So again, we're just going to be using this chef's knife, just kind of your all-purpose utility knife, I'm sure, in your kitchen, and just a smaller paring knife. Nothing too crazy. So what we're going to do is take that tomato. Again, I'm going to try to adjust this angle so that my hands work properly near the product. And about 1/4 of the way up it, we're just going to slice the top off, just like that. As you can kind of see where that stem is right in the middle, it's going to go all the way through. So you're never going to cut it to where that's not there. But you can see the closer you get to the top, the more of it there's going to be and the thicker it is. And that's kind of what we're wanting to get rid of, because that's just a really hard, almost chewy piece. So try to eliminate as much as we can. All right, so we're going to do with our paring knife now. Go ahead and set the tomato back down. Keep yourself safe. And we're just going to try to cut through this tomato. You don't want to poke through the skin. We're just going to kind of quarter the inside of this tomato. And again, we're just kind of cutting that stem into some pieces. And then we're going to just segmenting the inside. This whole inside is getting ripped out, so there is no need at all to make it look pretty with those cuts, okay? And then I'm just taking my knife, just slowly working our way around that tomato. And now we have those little segments, and you can use your knife to pop them out if you want. Or grab yourself your handy dandy spoon and just kind of use that to scoop these inside pieces out. And since we kind of broke that stem up into several pieces, it should kind of, you can see, pop out relatively cleanly.
Now, when you were cutting around the inside of the tomato, you were cutting towards yourself. Does it matter cutting away or towards? It's just whatever you're comfortable with, right?
Yep, whatever you're comfortable with. And for me, doing this kind of motion, where I can see the knife motion a little easier, because I'm almost just sawing it a little bit, is easier for me because if I cut away from myself, I feel it's too awkward of a vision. Like I don't see it as easy.
Okay.
So that's the only reason. It's what you're comfortable with. I personally feel I have more control when I'm bringing it towards me.
Yeah, left it a little less to chance since you can see what's going on.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
So
cool.
Then I just have a stack of paper towels here, and all I'm going to do is set this tomato upside down on that paper towel just to drain a little bit. So try that tomato one way, and then once you guys try it another way, whatever works best for you. Another way to do it is, again, we're going to set it flat. I'm going to take my knife at kind of a 45-degree angle in, and you'll kind of feel when you hit that middle stem as opposed to just tomato flesh. And if you can cut through that stem again, it's going to pop right out like that again. And then you can do two things from here. Don't forget to stir your mushrooms. If you like more tomato, leave it like this. I'd say a heft of this is now tomato. If you want this dish to be a little heavier tomato, just leave it like this. Don't worry about going through here and cutting the rest of this stuff out. Just leave it as it is. It's, again, you're cooking in your kitchen. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. And then once I get that kind of circled around, you can, off cam. Kind of twist it like that. And see, I kind of got it coming out. Just play with it. Hack at it. Every tomato is going to be slightly different.
I like that it's messy. You know, and I'm not saying that as a slight at all, but when you watch cooking on TV, it is always pristine.
I'll tell you what, the magic of TV is so amazing. I've seen them cook them roasts so fast they didn't even close the oven door. It was almost like they had a second roast already waiting for them in the oven. It's really, really crazy.
That they would never be so duplicitous, would they?
No. Guy Fieri would never do us wrong.
No. I mean, TV and the internet, everything is absolute and true.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we're getting in trouble over that one, Ken.
Oh, well. Because this is on the internet. What am I saying?
I'm going to bring you back to my mushrooms here a little bit. And again, you can see a lot more steam, and you're going to start to see a little bit of moisture in your pan. Again, that is a good thing. We want that moisture to start kind of building up in that pan. If you have multiple cutting boards, you can break a second cutting board out. I just gave mine a quick wash as we are sticking to vegetables. And even going from vegetables to meat or something along those lines isn't necessarily bad. I just try to avoid going from meat to vegetables, especially something like these tomatoes that I'm just kind of lightly roasting. I'm not necessarily bringing them up to 180 degrees, verifying everything's killed on it, if that makes sense. So just kind of keep this going, and we are going to go ahead and come back to our cutting board, and we're going to work on this chimichurri now. So your parsley. When you get your parsley in a bunch, it's going to normally either have a rubber band or a bread tie. Those are not good for knives. Get rid of those. Up here of your parsley is going to have most of the leaves. So what you can kind of do is give that a nice chop, get rid of that. But that doesn't necessarily mean everything in here is going to be great. See? Found one with a really, really big stem on it. So I'm going to pull that out, pull those leaves off. A lot of the bitterness that comes in herbs, such as parsley, cilantro, comes from the stems. So if you have the time, the want, or the need to sit here, and the closer up, as you can see, you're going to have this big one. It's going to split. It's going to split. The more stem you remove, the the more parsley flavor you're going to get without that little bit of bitterness at the end, because that's what that stem is bringing to you. Also, that's where most of your fiber in those little herbs are. And by fiber, I mean like the fibers that get stuck in your teeth, not the kind that makes that morning work break easier fiber. So we don't need a ton of this here for our mushrooms. So about, yay much. We're going to keep this set aside for right now. And that's where we're going to put our mushrooms. The rest of this, we're going to put inside a blender. I have my nice little NutriBullet here that I really like for small little kitchen sauces like this, just because it's so easy to rinse off and clean really fast. If you don't have one, you got to use a big blender. That's fine. If you don't have one of those, chop it as fine as you can, throw it into a bowl, and just kind of mix all this stuff together too. You're going to get the same effect without really any flavor difference. It's just going to be maybe a different texture or maybe a different emulsion. So how long it kind of sits. If you're just kind of hand mixing it, you may need to mix it together in the bowl a little more often. No change really though. So once our mushrooms are now starting to really shrink down, and if you guys can see, we're down to like, I don't know, what'd you say, Tim? It's about a third, maybe a quarter of the size of the amount of stuff we started in there with.
Yeah.
Once we get to about that spot, you can take this little bit of parsley that we have left right here. And again, just a rough chop of these. So I went one direction. So now I'm going to turn my knife and just go the other way, rocking it back and forth. And scrape them all up.
So in terms of the parsley, a little stem is okay. It's just the thick stems that you're trying to get rid of?
Yes, exactly. So any of like that one I pulled, like this one here.
Yeah.
That one definitely get rid of. It's not going to really have anything except for be chewy. The tiny ones up against the leaves, you won't even notice a difference at all.
Okay.
But, I don't know, however much time I just spent, I would never say spend more than that. What was that, a minute maybe picking through my fresh herbs?
Yeah, maybe.
You never really need to do more than that.
Okay.
So I'm just going to throw that right into here. And you're instantly going to start smelling that fresh parsley once it hits that warm pan. So I'm now going to turn these all the way down to, I'm at like 1.5, almost as low as I can get on those mushrooms. So now for the rest of this, again, got my herbs in there. We're going to take that shallot that we have this time. Again, it's getting blended, so I don't need it to be perfectly well chopped. Got that shallot right there. I'm going to cut this into, I don't know, we'll say 3 pieces this way. Boom.
Just chunk it up?
Just chunk it up. You don't want to throw the whole thing in there because then by the time it is blended smooth, the parsley is just going to be beaten all the, Yeah. So just get into some chunks, making it easier. Next tip is, depending on what type of blender you're using. Again, I'm doing the garlic, but since I'm just kind of chunking it, I'm just chopping both ends off. If you're using a blender, like a traditional sits on your counter, you made plenty of margaritas with this style blender, you want to put these chunkier things in first. And you'll kind of see what I mean here with mine, because I put my blender blades on it, and then when I invert it, those bigger chunks are now closer to the blade, if that makes sense. That way they're kind of getting the brunt of the abuse from the blades. So I got all that stuff in there. We're going to grab some more of that olive oil. And this is a very unmeasurable amount. I'm sure somewhere on the internet, you're going to find a recipe that's going to tell you to put exactly a 1/4 cup per 2 ounces of parsley, which is half a, oh, look, we're cooking at home. make it one way. You want just enough oil in there that you can kind of see at the bottom that you have some liquid to kind of start the movement, right? Next time you go to make this, you say, last time it kind of had it was a little too oily for me. Put a little less oil in there. That not that big of a difference. All that oil is mostly what it is. We're essentially just making a very flavored oil here. So you can cut that. My next secret trip, and any good Wisconsinite, I'm sure, has this in their fridge, but you're probably going to have to go to your bar top fridge. And if you look on my face cam here, I just have a little bitty bottle of lemon juice. Get a whole lemon if you really want fresh squeezed and all that. But considering I'm putting that much in there, to me, I really don't need a fresh lemon to put a dab of that in there.
So just a splash of lemon, essentially.
Just a splash of lemon juice. If you don't have that splash of lemon juice at the house, you can do a splash of vinegar. Basically, you just want some form of acid, and not that kind, all you deadheads out there. We're talking cooking acid. It's a flavor profile, okay?
Don't get the wrong idea.
Yeah, settle down, Cheech. All right. So I'm going to take this. This might get a little loud, so I'm actually going to kill my camera, and then I'll kind of walk you guys through it. Or I'll kill my mic, I should say, and I'll be right back.
Once again, while this is chopping up and the mic is off, any questions, comments as we're going? Just toss them in there. It's so odd to have cooking without sound.
Right.
I mean, like that. There's no sizzle coming out of the pan, nothing at all. That's
I definitely can see that. So as you guys saw, I didn't want to necessarily grab the parsley and pull it down right away. So I just added a little bit more oil because I just needed a little bit more liquid in there. And now, there you go.
Everyone imagine the sound of a blender blending.
Boom.
Just a little bit of sound.
Just a little bit of sound. That's what I was trying to kill it.
Oh, we lost your...
yeah, I just hit a button.
Cam.
It should be coming right back up, hopefully.
Okay.
And Inner Studio should be coming right back up.
And we're back. Oh.
Had to kill the mic on it. There we go.
Okay, good. Perfect.
All right. So as you guys saw as I was doing that first time I went to take it through, it just didn't kind of want to grab that parsley and pull it down, right? That just meant I didn't have quite enough liquid in that blender. So I stopped, added just another 2 tablespoons, I would say, of oil into there. Not much, just enough to get it to actually start blending and mixing together. Once I did that, I just put it right into the fridge. So we will season that, but we'll season that again later, because if you put that salt in there right now, it's going to start pulling even more of that moisture out of that parsley, garlic, and all that. And then you have oil in there plus water, and it's going to cause it to not kind of be nice and clumpy. So you want to season your chimichurri right before it hits the table or the plate, basically. You don't necessarily want to season it a day, 2 days ahead of time, because you can prepare this a day or two ahead of time. That sauce. I love having a little jar of it. I mean, grill some steaks, grill some chicken, anything like that. Just pop it in there, and it's absolutely perfect.
One of our younger cooks following, her name is Lily, wants to know, Dunbar, why you have 2 fridges, and you like lemon juice. And additionally, she says hi.
Well, hello, Lily. I have 2 fridges, but one of them's just for beverages.
Oh, Good call. A beverage fridge and a food fridge.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the next step is we're going to go ahead and get these tomatoes ready to stuff. Relatively easy to do, but very crucial. So what I'm going to do, again, is just a little bit of olive oil, just a splash. You're just going to rub that inside and out, right? That oil all over. So once you get that tomato oiled up, sorry, whenever you see me step away, my stove is on the other side, like right behind me, or my sink, not stove. You then want to liberally, very, very liberally season these tomatoes. Here's about a solid pinch of salt, as everyone can see. And I'm going to use about that much on one tomato.
And the salt, you're using kosher salt, right?
So yes, kosher salt or a good thicker ground sea salt will also work. I like the kosher salt mostly because the way the grains stack, they're more jagged, so therefore it clings to things better. Mm-hmm. You look at it under a microscope, it looks like little diamonds, as opposed to if you looked at iodized salt, they're just more round, so they fall off of things easier, especially when we get to seasoning the steak and that sort of thing. It's just a better ingredient to work with, as well as the way they process it gives it sound weird, but it's going to give it a saltier salt flavor. When you see people just dumping tons of salt on their stuff, that's because it's that iodized salt. And that iodized salt, because of the process of iodizing it and all that, kills the salinity of the salt, as weird as that sounds. Make sure you got to use more to get the same amount of flavor. So by using a good kosher salt, a good crystalline salt, you can use less of it. So that's why I like kosher salt myself.
Okay, cool.
Eric,
we use kosher salt a lot at our house too.
Yeah, I love it. I can't remember exactly what kind I have right now. I've kind of been in a, weird experimenting with salt phase for the last 6-8 months or so, where I'll just kind of try different brands, different ones, see which ones I like.
Okay.
But again, it's preference more than anything. All right, so now that I have these tomatoes very well salted, I'm going to go ahead and just start stuffing this mushroom right inside of them. So, as you guys saw, I did put, and like I said, liberally salt these. You can see the salt on these tomatoes. The ones we test ran the other day, we did not salt them. And there's so much liquid, even though we cored out so much of that tomato, there's so much liquid left inside of them that as we roast, it starts coming out. That if you do not salt them, it's just going to drown away any salt you try to put on it later. Like if you were just trying to, the salt we put in the mushrooms or the salt we did that we're going to put on the top of it right now, it's not going to be enough. So now that I have those, this time I'm going to do a very light sprinkle of salt right on top. And I have my air fryer. I'm just going to load those up in here right now. So I'm not roasting these off just yet. I'm just setting them in there, kind of in the pan, to get them out of our way. So I'm going to do a quick cutting board swap, clean up real fast. So we can start on the steak here in just a moment. If I can find my other cutting board.
It's got to be there somewhere.
It's somewhere. I have 2 more that I use, and I just don't know where one of those 2 are currently hiding from me. Huh. Isn't that the mystery of life? All right, that's down here somewhere. Come on. Well, I guess we'll use this one. All right. Normally, this is the one I like to use post-cooking just because it has that line in there to kind of collect any juices so I don't get any runoff on my countertop after we let the steaks rest. But I guess we'll that sounds like a problem for 10 minutes from now, Andrew. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get our steaks out. I like flank steak. For me, is a very good cut of meat that unfortunately other people started to think it's a good cut of meat, which now means it costs about 3 times what it did 5 to 10 years ago. But it's a great cut. So this thickness is about what you're going to get. This isn't like a normal steak where they're getting this whole big primal that they're cutting down into several sections. This is the whole muscle, essentially. Now, obviously, they made a cut here for it to get to it. But if you look at it, the rest of this, that's all natural end of this meat on all the sides. Which I like because that means that your flank steak is extremely consistent in terms of the thickness, where no matter where you get it. I mean, yeah, one cow is going to be a little bigger than the other, but it's never like a T-bone to where, you know, one's a ½ inch thick and then the next one you get's 2.5 inches thick. And it's impossible to kind of remember how to cook them if, you know, you have limited steak experience. So what we're doing with this is we're just going to cut this couple runs of fat. Flank steak is a relatively lean cut. But you will get a couple pieces here or there that are in there. Obviously, this little bit of stuff that's up here, I'm not super worried about because I don't mind a little bit of fat on mine. That's where the flavor is. This harder, kind of thicker, gristly stuff. You also want to look and see if there's any silver skin, which cleverly gets its name because it is extremely silver. I mean, it shimmers whenever, you know, it hits the light. So again, we're going to take our steak here and give this a pretty good seasoning. Once you do that, you can kind of press it in a little bit, get this going.
I have breaking cutting board news if you are interested.
Yes.
The other cutting board is upstairs.
About right. About right.
Thank you, Autumn.
We're good without it. We'll be all right. Yeah, we'll be all right without it. My fiance and kids are having a movie night upstairs, and I think she used it for the charcuterie that she cut for them while they're enjoying their movie.
Well, you got to put charcuterie on something.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's talk steak pans. Again, any pan will work. This here has a side to it. Not a super big side, as you can see, maybe, you know, second knuckle deep or so. It's not, you know, like a pot at all. But I like having a little bit of a bigger side just because it's going to prevent some of that splatter while you're cooking. So we're going to heat up our pan again with just a slight drizzle of olive oil in there. We're just going to give that a minute or two to heat up. And again, we're going to let that salt kind of sit on that steak. 5 to 10 minutes or so is preferred, I guess you could say. Because then what you're going to do is grab yourself a piece of paper towel. And after that 5 or 10 minutes, and you're going to take it and just kind of fold it up into halves, if you will, and dab the top of the steak. There's going to be a little bit of moisture that salt is helping to pull out of that steak. And when it comes to putting something into a hot pan, moisture is your enemy, right? That's what's going to cause the steak to steam as opposed to cook, which means you're then not going to get a nice sear on it. And your sear is where your flavor is when it comes to meat and that type of stuff. So, got our pan heating up. We got our steak ready. At this point, you can go ahead and pop your tomatoes in the oven. So these are going to cook at about the same time. If you're in your regular oven, again, I think we said 375 to 385, it's going to be about probably 15-ish minutes. If you have a newer oven that has a convection setting, an air fryer setting, something along those lines, go ahead and pop it in there, and it may only take about 10 minutes. I'm using, again, my air fryer. I have it set at 380 at about 6-7 minutes. And that's about how long we're going to need for all this. So what we're going to do is we're going to cook this steak while our tomatoes are cooking. At least the first half of the tomatoes, and we'll kind of get to that. Tomatoes are tricky, right? Yours may just be a little bigger than mine. Yours may just have a little moisture than mine. So roasting time on that's going to be kind of a variable here. But the good news is your steak needs to rest. It needs to rest for 5 to 8 minutes once you pull it out of this pan. So that's going to be our makeup time with these tomatoes. So get your tomatoes going while we're getting almost there with it in terms of the heat level. I have my pans for my steak at like an 8 or a 9 to heat up and get your tomatoes going.
And I'm sorry, if you have just a regular old oven as opposed to an air fryer, what was the setting in time for that?
About 375 to 385.
Okay.
Again, kind of depending on if your oven cooks a little slower or a little lower.
Yeah.
And we're gonna probably be doing about 15 minutes in there, 15 to 18 minutes in total. Okay. We're gonna pop it out. We're gonna check them at about the 10 to 12 minute mark, about 3/4 of the way through to see where they're at. Okay. And then that second half, if they need to cook a little longer, we have that steak rest time to kind of build in. So I am cutting my steak, and I will bring this back over to here. With flank steak, a very important aspect or something to know is the grains. So it's very easy to see, especially if you kind of bend it. You can see the grains of the steak in there. You want to cut with those grains, and I'm just cutting mine in half, just for ease of them fitting into my pan. And when I'm pulling them out and trying to flip them, if I'm sitting there trying to flip a giant honker of a steak, it just gets difficult. So I have it in there. I'm going to put my end down and lay it away from you. That way, if you do flip up any of that grease or olive oil, it's splashing away from you and not right at you. So I'm going to try to get this camera here set up for food cam. It's temporarily now going to be known as steak cam.
Nice.
We can watch those sizzle. So as you saw, I laid them in. I gave them that quick little shake just to redistribute any oil that was in that pan back underneath the steaks. And after that, I'm just going to kind of leave it alone. Since I'm -1 cutting board, I'm doing a quick wash here. Which is probably not a bad thing anyway. It just means I got a lot less dishes to do at the end of the day. All right. So leaving that sit, I just really don't want to touch this steak for the first couple minutes after I drop it in that pan. I did turn my heat down. Like I said, I was at a high temperature to get the pan nice and hot, and you want to get that oil to where it's just almost starting to smoke. You maybe see a wisp of smoke off of it, and that's it. At that point, you want to bring it down because you don't want your oil to get after it and nasty from burning it. So got my steaks. You start to see they're coming up. They're getting some cooking. We're going to do something here, and we're going to flip this one here. You can see I got this kind of edge where it's seared, but not this middle. And we're going to leave this one here just for a few minutes. We're just going to do a little on-camera experiment and see exactly how this goes. Because the way it should go is this one I haven't flipped yet. As soon as that muscle sees heat, it's going to contract when it sears. So that's going to cause almost it to bevel and kind of pop up like that, which is why we didn't get that great sear all the way across the steak. After it cooks a little bit and the whole steak starts to get up to that temperature or warmer, it's going to relax again, back in a minute or so. And that's going to allow me to start getting that sear across the middle of my steak. So we're going to leave this other one, and I'm going to cook this second steak 65%, decent amount over half on one side. I'm basically going to flip it to finish it, if that makes sense. Sorry if there's a loud hum from my air fryer going right now, but you're finally getting them cooking sounds that you asked for, Tim.
I'm not picking up any hum.
Oh, good. That my microphone was worth it then. If it's not, that microphone is sitting about that far from the air fryer that's blowing out air. So.
Oh yeah, I'm not getting anything. I'm getting more sizzle from the steak than any hum.
Wow, I'll take that. Yeah, go JLab condenser mic. I'm a fan.
Literally selling the sizzle.
So as you can see, this steak is starting to cook all the way through. You can see the coloring kind of covering the end cap here. Obviously, there's no more meat there to prevent it. But don't take that as it's cooked that way all the way through. We're going to temp it. That's the best way to check your steak. I know there's plenty of purists out there that try to tell you, you don't need a temperature, you don't need a thermometer, just hold your arm and put it underneath your leg and stand on your head on a Tuesday, and when you push right here, that's a medium well steak. No. It's $7 on Amazon, and I can tell you exactly what 144 degrees is. At the end of the day, it's so much worth it if you're eating steak, chicken, fish, to just get yourself a little bitty thermometer like that. Yep. All right, so we're going to go ahead and try flipping our second steak now and see how it looks. There we go. Now you can see, as I said, I have, try to turn this up a little bit, in the more across the middle and all that, I have a much more rounded sear on that steak than I did that first one. So now we get those flipped. Just take a look here. Oh, look at that one. I left that one a little longer. Got a nice sear there. So again, every time you cook your steaks, the outside have a nice little crispy edge to them, and the middle doesn't. You just didn't let them sit long enough. So we're going to cook these for another minute or so, and then we're going to check our steak temperatures. So depending on how you like your steak, you are looking for somewhere between 145 to 165 for your final temperature. That's going to take you from medium rare to well. If you like them a little under, go for 140. If you like them really, really well done, you can go for 170 if you would like, but don't tell me about it. So when you pull your steaks, though, they're going to increase their temperature by 3 to 5 degrees with carryover heat, right? The outside of that steak is touching that pan. The outside of that steak is probably 250 degrees, while the middle is sitting at 140. So if you want your steak to be at 145 degrees, you need to pull it when it's at 140 degrees. So I'm going to try to get us a good angle here to show you how to really tempt a steak. Eric, you want to come over here and hold this right here for me? Perfect. So I'm going to take this steak out of the pan, and I'm going to set it on my cutting board. I'm going to turn my thermometer on, and I'm going to go Again, we find those grains. They're running this way. I'm going to find where those grains are, and I'm just going to stick it in there so I can get as close to that middle as I can. I'm also going to try to pick the medium part of the steak. And I mean that in terms of if I pick the thickest part of the steak, it's going to be at its lowest temp. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. It's going to be at the lowest point, temperature-wise. If I pick the thinnest part of the steak to stick that thermometer in, it's going to be at the hottest part of that steak. So I need to stick it in the middle and adjust. So I got those two steaks, or that steak, at 138 degrees. So I am now setting those there. I'm going to get rid of this pan. I'm going to grab a clean dishcloth. You can use aluminum foil. You can use wax paper. You can use whatever method you need. And I'm just going to cover those and let them sit for this about 5 minutes. Aluminum foil, I would say, is probably the best option, just because it's not going to absorb any juices that are out. But as you can see, I didn't tuck the steaks in there. I just gently laid it over it. Juices are going to be fine. It's not going to suck them out of the steak. You may get some juices on your dish towel. Which some may not want a brown stain on a dish towel. So while that's going, the next step to this dish is going to be our egg. So for this, we're going to basically cook the egg once I have about 90% of this plated. But we can start getting that pan kind of preheated and going. My tomatoes are now through that first timer. I'm gonna come over here with them. See that tomato? So let's get that blistered edges on there. That is a perfect roasted tomato. That is exactly what we want right there. And as I go to pull it out of the out here in a minute, I'll give everybody a little bit of a close-up of the tomato so you can visually see what you're looking for. But again, you kind of want a little bit of blistering crispiness on there, and that's going to really tell you your tomato's done. Again, if you like a little bit of a raw tomato flavor, cook it a little longer. If you don't like that much tomato flavor, cook it a little more, and it's going to turn that off. So we currently have our steaks resting, our pan heating for our egg. Tomatoes are done, and our chimichurri needs seasoned. So I'm going to get that back out. At this point, consider I'm about 5 minutes from plating, if that. I'm going to hit with a little bit of salt. And again, going off mic.
If there are any late game questions, please feel free to add them in. We're going to be bringing Eric Miller in pretty soon, I would imagine.
Yes, he is here now. He's just kind of staying quiet in the background, being my cameraman. But yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go ahead and get some plates out. And what I'm going to do whenever we start doing these, this plating, Tim, is I'm going to kill the food cam. If you just want to shift it, if you want to take the food cam offline for just a moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll adjust the camera down just so it's a larger kind of overview of the plate and all that, just so we can see it easier. And then I'll get that camera into where me and Eric will be talking about wine. He'll be able to get that camera set up to where we will be sitting and talking about the wine.
Sure.
So if you want to go ahead and just kind of drop food cam and shift to the other cam,
before or after you're done with the egg?
Now's fine. Yeah, we can do that before. We can do that right now. And I can make it work for both with the one camera.
Okay, here we go. The food cam is gone.
Perfect. And then camera will be put with our backs towards the plants, basically. All right, so now let me just do a quick adjustment of my face camera here. And let's check that focus. There we are. Okay. So, plating. Plating is definitely the most unnecessary part of cooking, especially while you're at home, right? And I mean that in terms of what you're actually bringing to the meal, right? It's not bringing flavor, but what is it bringing? It is bringing color, passion. It is showing off what you did. So when I say it brings nothing, I don't mean that in terms of it shouldn't be done. I just mean that in terms of don't feel that this is the only way to do it. I guess I see it more as this is, you can't make a mistake at this point, right? There is no wrong way to plate, especially when you're cooking at home. 90% of my home meals, I'm just sitting at a table and we have it all family style in front of us. So I'm going to show you kind of on this first one, a very restaurant style. So if you are having a special date night, if you're cooking in a more intimate experience, kind of to add that little extra to your dish. And then the second one, we're not going to really plate it at all in terms of, a fancy restaurant plating, because I want you to show that, or I want you to see that this dish stands out on its own so well with this vibrancy of colors that we're putting together. So the first thing, you'll need a spoon.
And a cat to supervise, I would imagine.
And a cat to supervise. As anybody with a cat knows, they run the house. That's just me. Normally dinner time is closer to 5:30 or 6 for me, and we feed it when we eat. So that's it telling me that it's 2 hours late for its food. So I have that chimichurri that we made. I know it doesn't look too great in this angle and lighting, but trust me, you'll see it here in a bit. I'm going to take a spoonful of this. I'm going to put it right onto my plate, right? Just kind of a glob of it right there onto the plate. And then you're going to take the back of your spoon in there and just give it this little smear, right? As soon as you get that little smear in there, leave it. I'm then going to take one of our tomatoes. The sides start popping off. That's perfectly fine. And I'm going to set it right on kind of that bigger clump. Right there. That's a little tomato skin. Just got that. I'm going to switch this over and show you guys how to slice your flank steak. Again, with those grains, they're running this way. You want to cut across them. So when you go to cut this, give yourself a nice slice, crossing that grain. Because what's going to happen, if you cut with the grain, you're going to spend 3 hours chewing every piece of steak because the muscle tissue that makes up that steak is running that direction. It's a very strong cord. By cutting those into these little bitty bits, you're helping do some of that work for you. So again, if you can see on the color may not be there with the camera angle I currently have, but we'll do some close-ups with the other camera here in a bit. This is a nice medium steak right here. And I'm just kind of laying those right there on that edge where that swoop kind of comes out of that chimichurri. And I'm going to take a little more of that chimichurri. And I'm just going to put a couple little dots of it across my plate. So that's that. I have my nice warm pan right here, ready for my egg. The very last bit of this is going to be drop that egg in there, and we just want a nice over easy egg. I'm going to take that egg and lay it right on top of this tomato to give it a nice white contrast. You have this bright green. Obviously, I have very bright plates as is. But it's going to give this nice contrast to this bright neon green chimichurri mixed with this bright red tomato and this white streak across it. We're just cooking an over easy egg here. So again, this how you do it. If you have tips, tricks, I like to pop it into a somewhat warm pan. I'd say on that medium lowish size. That way it doesn't start cooking as soon as it hits, and I can get a little bit of a spread of my white. And I'm going to take it until it just starts to bubble some, flip it, cook it another 30 to 40 seconds. Tim, if you want, we can do a little bit of that TV magic I was talking about here. If you want to kind of cut back and we're going to cut to the face cam. And as I finish this plate up, like I said, we'll show the plating off here in just a moment. But if you have anything you'd like to announce, if there's anything else you'd like to talk to, we're going to be sitting down here in about 3 minutes to enjoy this meal and talk wine for the last 10 minutes.
Okay.
So if you have any other announcements or anything like that about the library you'd like to put out right now, please.
You know, I was honestly so engaged in watching you cook. I know there's stuff coming up at the library. I mean, there's got to be, right? I mean, there is, of course, Touch the Trucks, which everyone loves, which is coming up on the 12th of July. The Bruin Bee, which is the Bruin Bee 3, Spell Harder, which is the adult spelling bee, coming up at Spell Brewery. The registration for that is open now. That's one of our few programs that does have a registration fee. It's $20. But with that, you get 2 Pet Skull beverages. You get a certificate that is suitable for framing or using as a large coaster the night of the bee, and a shot at glory, because glory is very important. But in addition to glory, there are prizes. First, the champion gets his beautiful trophy that's been donated by Manitowoc Trophy, and the top 3 finishers get there are prizes for the top 3 finishers, and then of course there is a sad prize for the person who is eliminated first. So that's coming up.
So I can come in and be the worst at spelling and win a prize?
But remember, it's a sad prize.
It's a sad prize.
It's a sad prize. So it is a prize, but you know, it's not nearly as good as a trophy. But that's coming up. We have Meet the Alpacas coming up, where we're going to have alpacas on the front lawn of the library. Of course, summer reading program is going on right now. The next installment of this particular show is coming up on the 13th of July. Same time, same 2 channels. If you haven't seen The Princess Bride on a bigger screen, we're showing that at the library in the Balkansky room. There is so much stuff. What I would actually encourage people to do is check out the events page on Manitowoc Public Library's website, which is manitowoclibrary.org. There's so much going on. And of course, just a summer reading program where you get rewarded for reading. So you can earn prizes. The whole thing is read or be read to 30 hours over the course of the summer, from now till August 12th. And, you know, get rewarded for reading. And it's for all ages, from toddlers reading to all the way to you no longer can read. You can also listen to books, audible books, the whole schmear. So
awesome. That sounds like a summer packed with fun. Again, we're going to do a little bit of movie magic here, and we are ready to kick back to what was known as Food Cam.
It is now known as Meal Cam.
If you want to get back to it, I'm going to go mic silent for just a moment, long enough to get everything on there going.
Awesome. Hello, Eric. Oh, I don't know. Eric, can you hear me, Eric?
All right. Can you hear me again? All right there, Tim.
Yep, you are good. You are good to go. Hello, Eric. Eric can't hear me.
All right. Can you hear me, Tim?
I can hear you. Can you
We're
hear
going to do a
me?
mic check here. Hopefully I'm making this work.
Can you hear me?
Mic check. All right. Looks like mine's working.
Yeah, you can't hear me, though?
You want to try talking to me again, Tim? Trying to see if I hear you.
Okay, I can hear you. I definitely can hear Andrew.
All right. So apparently I can't hear Tim currently, but give me 1 minute. I'm going to fix that.
All right. I mean, there are worse things than not hearing Tim, but I don't mind. I hope if anyone's watching, if you can let me know 1 second. There is a comment that just came in. Maybe that's about it. Oh, I will wait till I can be heard.
Oh, technical difficulties. How I love them.
Well, that's live TV, though. That's live broadcasting. So
it says mine is working. It's just a matter of getting us to hear him, which could cause. Do you want to hit the mic button on the bottom left of that?
Okay.
All right.
Andrew, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. So I had to set up I'm listening to you audio through my computer while I'm filming with a different camera. So the Chef Andrew cam that I'm waving to you on, you can just drop that cam. I just need it in to be able to hear what you're saying.
Well, unfortunately, I can't. I have to remove it completely, and that would remove the sound. I just have a very small picture on the side. The
That's
main
fine.
picture
It's just
is
going to
the
be
meal
of
kit.
the corner of my house, basically, just due to the way I have my camera set up. So,
hello,
right.
Eric. The people following along know I've said to you, I've said hi about 8 times. I didn't know the mic wasn't working. But I do have a message for Eric. Lily and Cedric say hi, Daddy.
Hi, kids.
Oh, so those are your kids?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
So first I'm going to give everybody that close-up of the different platings as I kind of talked about. So here is kind of that first plating I was talking about, right? You get that contrast white to that bright chimichurri, and it's just a very attractive plate. The way it's sitting. And then I just brought it over here, and I wanted to throw without that egg on there to show, like, if you don't want the egg on there, that is not an issue whatsoever. On my plate, I skipped the egg. I just kind of threw some of that chimichurri up on top of the steak and on the tomato. So there's 2 completely different ways to plate the same dish that gave you, a very different kind of look without sacrificing flavor. Again, I just went egg, no egg to change it up. You're cooking at home. Do what you like. If you don't like steak, skip the steak and just eat this nice vegetarian to vegan, depending on where you source some of your ingredients, meal. But now that we're about to try first, my friend Eric here, I said, is going to kind of talk wine, the wine he chose and why he got there. So Eric, it's all you.
All right. Hi, folks. So I get the fun part. I get to eat your cooking and just talk about wine, I guess.
Yeah. That's
yeah, so food and wine pairing, like in the restaurant industry, I see so many people intimidated by this subject, and it really doesn't need to be. Wine has acidity, and I like to think of it like a condiment. Like when you look in your fridge, you got your soy sauce, ketchup, all those things add acidity to a dish, and all wine has acidity. So as long as you got wine in front of you, you're already on the right path. As far as like why I picked this wine or some things I like to look at, Dunbar chose flank steak today, which, as he said earlier, is a leaner meat. So if we were doing something like a porterhouse or something or like a ribeye, where it was a lot more of a tender, marbly, fattier meat, I would look for a more full-bodied wine, because fat loves tannin loves fat. So I'd be thinking like Cabernet. But since this is a leaner cut, we went with Cab Franc today. So this is a higher acidity wine, which will pair really well with the tomato we have on our plate right here. Some other wines you could go with would be like a Sangiovese from Italy. So I'm thinking Tuscany, you could do like a Chianti or Vino Nobile di Montepulciano or Rosso di Montalcino. Also, you could do like Garnacha from Rioja or honestly anything. So what we're doing here is we're kind of picking a wine, a little bit of a lighter bodied red wine with a leaner cut of meat. So we're gonna kind of do a complementary pairing. You could also contrast too. Like some of my favorite pairings are fried chicken and champagne.
Right. Yeah.
And champagne is about as lean as it gets. So, but yeah, so the wine we have in front of us here is one of my favorite producers from the Loire Valley. So this is in France. Yep,
French wine.
Yep, we're in France. Producer here is Arnaud Lambert, and the region is Saumur, Champigny. It's the actual region.
I believe Eric got this in Green Bay, correct?
Yeah, I got this from Waterford Wine up in De Pere.
The Pere area,
real close to Costco. It was like $20.
Right. So, that was something he really, I know, wanted to make sure it was a wine as, him being a sommelier, a wine expert. This is his thing, is wine. He has plenty that has come from across the world. He wanted to make sure it's something that you, again, as I did, you can drive to festival to get the meat and the veggies for this. You can drive to a wine store locally in Green Bay and get this incredible bottle of wine for that $20. And I know when I priced out this meal for the two people, I think food was right around that $20 mark. I think this steak was the $13 to $14. We're talking, $1 to $2 worth of ingredients. I mean, I had the garlic and the eggs laying around the house. So, as I'm sure most people do. So, we're talking $40 for steak, sides, and a nice bottle of wine for two people. Go out on town and look for that anywhere, and you're gonna not even come close to that. I mean, $40 per person maybe is what you're going to be getting. So, that's one of the benefits of eating at home as well, is I could do this 6 nights a week. I can't go spend $40 a person 6 nights a week out on town.
And you get a whole bottle, not just one.
And a whole bottle, that's right. So thank you guys for coming with us tonight. If you have more questions about the food, about the wine, leave us comments. I'll make sure the right people answer the right questions. And if you have any other questions at all about cooking, wine, any of that, go ahead and ask the question and leave the hashtag @HomeWithAndrew. That way I know you are directing a question at me or at Eric here, and we will, try to stick on that as much as we can, even if this is 2-3 weeks down the line and you have a quick question, and we have a chance to get to you, we'll do what we can. So I want to say thank you. Yeah.
If you could send me the name, I'm probably going to repost this next week. If you could send me the name of the wine so that I can have that on it as well. I would definitely recommend everyone who's watching along, and I just know how things go. When you do live videos, live streams like this, I love them. A lot of people know that it's going to be archived forever, so they won't always tune in. So the people that have been watching, tell everybody because this was a fantastic show. It was fun to watch. It's great just watching home cooking. It's nice seeing, Eric and Andrew, whose names sometimes I reverse unintentionally, together, sharing their expertise. Eric, would you recommend with chicken and waffles with champagne? Would you do a champagne rinse on that glass of champagne after you finish it?
Yeah, definitely a champagne rinse. And my go-to is champagne goes with everything.
All right, fair enough. Well, gentlemen, I don't think I'm going to add myself back into the picture because there's absolutely no need for that. But as we head to the bumper outro, I think it's always good to see people eat what's been prepared. So if you guys want to dig in, I will head out with you guys eating, and both of the plates look great. I just want to say that one was a bit more elegant, but I like the rustic look of it without the egg too. I mean, they both look fantastic.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this dish is, I mean, at the end of the day, it was 6-7 ingredients. So no matter how you throw it together, it's going to come together. So thank you again to everybody. And I just want to reiterate, I put it in, the article that I had wrote for Seahafer that, you can eat food anytime, but, whenever you have an evening with great food, great friends, and great wine, that's a meal, and the meals are the ones that you're going to remember. So, create these meals, create these memories, and, have a wonderful life. So Thank you, everybody.
That's a cheers.
Cheers. Food is food, but meals are memories. So thank you so much to both of you. Thank you for everyone who tuned in, and let's watch these fine gentlemen eat as I take you out with our Avril Lavigne outro.
Yes. Can I be the skater boy?
I always thought you were. I thought maybe that's the wrong assumption, but all right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I love our new show. Thanks for coming up with the idea, Andrew. I'm glad to be a part of it. And from Andrew, Eric, the cat, have a great evening, everyone. And from Manitowoc Public Library, have a great evening. Until next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.